Okay, I don't know about you, but a household staple for me growing up and what I've implemented in my home is homemade chocolate chip cookies. There are so many chocolate chip cookie recipes out there, and I have found one that is just tried and true, and it is my go-to. So welcome to the Unfinished Kitchen, where oops is an ingredient in the kitchen and in life. My name is Devin-approved, and today we are making chocolate chip cookies using the Nestlé Toll House recipe. Now, no offense to Nestle, but like I've said before, I buy a lot of my baking ingredients in bulk, so that includes chocolate chips. So I actually took a package of Nestle chocolate, semi-sweet chocolate chips, and I cut out the chocolate chip cookie recipe, pasted it on this tub because I have a tub in my storage closet downstairs, and then I refill this tub whenever I need chocolate chips and want to make chocolate chip cookies. So today, this is what we're going to make. So I portioned everything out a little bit differently already. So I already have my 2 1/4 cup of flour, and then I have my teaspoon of baking soda, and then I also have my teaspoon of salt. And now I'm going to move the oven. Okay, so this recipe is heavily just all about what's going in the mixing bowl and not necessarily what's going on the counter like what I usually do whenever I'm making dough. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 sticks, so which is a cup of butter that is softened because, you know, somebody in my house really wanted chocolate chip cookies and he took the liberty of setting the butter out for me. So probably so it would sit there on the counter and encourage me to make these cookies. So we're going to put in our butter. And we're going to get that all mixed up until it is nice and creamy. All right, our butter is to where it's at. So after we have our butter, then we're just going to dump the remaining of the ingredients in. So we have 3/4 cup of sugar. We have 3/4 cup of brown sugar. It is in a silver bowl because I ran out of fancy clear bowls. And then we have our teaspoon of vanilla extract. So then I'm going to go ahead and mix this, and then we'll incorporate our eggs one at a time. And then before I incorporate my eggs, I also like to give my spatula a little scrape down because some of the butter, even though it's at, I'm going to say room temperature because it's like 5 degrees outside. So, I mean, our heat is on, but is it really room temperature in here? Probably not in the traditional sense. Then we're just going to give it one more mix. All right, now I'm going to have it on a low speed, and I'm going to add my eggs one at a time. And I bump up the speed a little bit just to make sure that the egg gets incorporated. And again, the same thing with the butter is I want to scrape the sides of the bowl to make sure all of the ingredients are getting incorporated, because the last thing you want is something that isn't fully mixed in, and then you have like a clump of butter or you have a clump of sugar in your dough, and then your cookies just don't make right. Okay, so again, scraping the sides of the bowl, because now that this mixture is nicely incorporated, we are going to start adding our dry mix slowly. Okay, here's the deal, friends. When adding dry mix, I like to do it strategically, because I am one of those people that time and time again, I've added dry mix and it just goes everywhere. We don't want that. So we are going to add the dry mix using a measuring cup, and we're going to add it slowly so that we don't have our dry mix going all over the counter and not into our mixture. And I'm just whisking it together a little bit, adding some of those dry ingredients. All right, so now I'm going to have my mixer on a low speed. I'm just going to take a cup of my dry mix and I'm just going to add it in. And then now whenever I just have a little bit of it left in the bowl, then I just add it in. All right, so now that all of our flour has been added to the bowl, so we have all of our dry ingredients and our wet ingredients, I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to scrape everything down before adding in the chocolate chips. All right, now our cookie dough is all set. Okay, here's the deal. I love chocolate chip cookies, but I don't love them for the chocolate chips per se. I don't even like chocolate chip cookies because of the cookie. I'm in it for the dough. I have a few merchandise items on my shop, the unfinishedkitchen.co, where I have a saying that says, I bake cookies for the dough, because that is 100% true, because I would just much rather eat cookie dough, but that's frowned upon in some places, and well, whatever to those people. They're not living life, but I'm going to eat the dough and be okay with it. But I am going to also make my cookies. So Toll House has putting 2 cups of chocolate chip cookies in there, or chocolate chips in there. That is too much for me. I'm a 1 cup kind of gal, so I'm going to incorporate 1 cup of chocolate chips in here because I would much rather have more cookie and less chocolate chips. And we're just going to get chocolate chips everywhere. This does fit in the container. How about that? I mean, typically I don't even measure it out. I just eyeball it. Like I'm already looking in here and being like, all right, that's enough. All right, so now that our chocolate chips are incorporated, we're going to take this off very carefully. And although we're going to scrape off as much dough as we can, wink wink, all right, so that's about as much dough as I think we're gonna get. So now I am going to flick it. Because like I said, I bake cookies for the dough. And I'll set this aside and eat more of it later. So I can finish these cookies for you. Okay, so now it's time to scoop the cookies onto the baking sheet. So I prefer an actual cookie sheet rather than just doing it like on a generic baking sheet, because you can get more cookies onto it. And my goal is to, get as many cookies as I can onto my baking sheet to speed up the process. And then I have my handy dandy little cookie scoop. So now we're just going to scoop cookies onto the baking sheet where I placed parchment paper because I don't want to scrub my cookie sheets whenever I'm done. I just want an easy cleanup and to just pick this up, throw it away, and give my cookie sheet a quick wipe out. Okay, so now I have these all divided up. I have 9 on each cookie sheet. I highly recommend, although you could use a spoon, using a cookie scoop is much easier. I think I either got this on Amazon or I got it from Wegmans, the grocery store. I can't remember. But having one of these is super helpful. And it makes it just a little bit easier so you don't have cookie dough everywhere. So now we're going to pop these into the oven for about 9 to 11 minutes, and then I will see you back here shortly. Okay, our chocolate chip cookies are exactly where I like them to be, because I like them to be a little dark around the edges and just a little gooey in the middle, so they're still a little bit soft, because then they will sit and they're still really hot, so then they'll cook just a little bit more as they cool down. So I typically like to just get them off into a cooling rack, so it helps them just cool a little bit faster, and then so I can eat them, although I'm having some technical difficulties right now. But that's typically what I do. And then a fun tip, that whenever you go to store your cookies, take a slice of bread and put it in the container, and that bread will help keep your cookies moist or softer, for those who don't like the word moist, for a little bit longer. So thank you so much for joining me on The Unfinished Kitchen. Please give me a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos. Thanks so much for watching.